Why walking? Why not high intensity interval training or running or lifting weights? Why is it that on this channel we advocate for walking rather than doing some of these more impressive exercises? On today's video, we're going to talk about walking, why yes, it's a biblical thing, but why when you're thinking about pillars of biblical health, walking rather than some of these other things is better. So today I'm coming to you from Reedsville, North Carolina. I'm on a farm here. A lady has an Airbnb here that's really great, and I get to walk in an area where I don't get to always walk. And so we're going to talk about why walking is great, but I want to talk about some of these other options that could be there. As you know, on this channel, there are 3 pillars of biblical health that we talk about. And it's what I call the few framework, based on Matthew chapter 7, verses 13 and 14, where Jesus says that the way to destruction is broad and many people take that direction, but that the way to life is narrow. That gate is narrow, it's difficult, and there are few who find it. So the few framework is an acronym that has 3 ideas. FEW. F stands for fast weekly, E stands for eat biblically, and W stands for walk daily. And so today we're going to be talking about the walking part. I'm out here walking in nature, and I'm going to try to do this in a way that the sun's not going to be on me, but I don't know this area that well, so I better turn around. So when it comes to walking, why walking? Why not high intensity interval training? Why not something like running or jogging or lifting weights? Now, I actually do lift weights once or twice a week, and I think lifting weights has its place. But if we're talking about pillars, if we're talking about foundational ideas of biblical health, walking is more important than all of those. There are plenty of reasons for this, but if we think about this biblically, what's interesting is if you think about something like these other things where they are technically exercise, Paul says an interesting thing in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 8. He says that bodily exercise profits a little, but godliness is something that profits even more. And so when you think about a lot of these things, we can tend to do something like exercise and then think that we can eat more or eat differently to earn the fact that we're eating in ways that are not biblical. So that's one reason. The other reason is right there in the verse, that it profits a little. Yet something like walking that you can really do every single day profits a lot. And of course, you might be saying, well, isn't walking a something that is bodily exercise? The answer is yes, it is. But what we're talking about here, okay, there's a butterfly. What we're talking about here is walking in a way that it is exercise, but I'm not really doing it to say, I need to get a certain number of steps. I like to think of it as a certain amount of time. And as much as possible, I want that time to be spent out in God's creation. So if you look at like this background where I'm right now, it's and you can probably hear whatever those things are in there. There's actually this kind of forest and wilderness right here, and there are these trails like that where I can go down. And the lady showed me the trail, and I went up in there a little bit, but I kind of had like spider webs on my face and stuff like that. And deep down, I'm a city kid. I'm a kid from Nashville, Tennessee. So going down these areas where I don't really know where it's going, we're just going to stay on the main path here, and that's going to work. And I've already gone this path, so I know where it's going. So when it comes to walking, there's something powerful about just getting out and putting one foot in front of the other. It's something that scales really well too. So you going from 5,000 or 6,000 steps to 7,000 or 8,000 steps. I've already said on this channel, my parents are walking a lot more, and at first they could barely go to the stop sign at the end of their subdivision, And now they can go all around in the subdivision. And so they are building stamina. And so that's something you can do as well. But when it comes to something like weights, when it comes to high intensity interval training, a lot of times there's a certain amount that you can get to, and you can't really go much farther than that, right? You can't just do HIIT training for 3 hours in a day, but you can walk for 3 hours in a day. It might not be 3 hours straight, but you can walk for an hour. I've been out here walking for about, 30, 45 minutes now before I grabbed the camera and started shooting. And so I easily go an hour plus most mornings. So walking is something like that, where you can scale it really well, and it's easy to not think of it as exercise in the way that these other things are, where sometimes you can really then say, well, I deserve to be able to eat that ice cream or eat something that's really not biblical food. And walking doesn't give you that same sense of accomplishment. It could, but I haven't found that to be the case. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk briefly about is that the W in this framework easily could have been something like water, like getting a certain amount of water in every day, rather than saying walk every day. But I think that walking just makes more sense as something like that, because with water, yes, you should primarily drink water, but I can easily just put water in with the idea of eating biblically. You could easily just say eat and drink biblically, which is mostly water. There's some things like wine or grape juice where that's something we clearly see in scripture. But again, I would just say that walking just makes a lot of sense when it comes to what you should be doing daily as something foundational to biblical health. And what I want to end with is this. When we think about at the very beginning, two things I want to just say here is that when you think about Adam and Eve, they walked with God physically in the beginning. We get a sense of this when in Genesis chapter 3, they have sinned, and the scripture says that they hid themselves from God. And when they hid themselves, the scripture says that they heard the sound of God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. Now, this seems to mean that they were generally there with God. And so God essentially asks, where are you? And it's not that he's asking, what is your location? Like he didn't know what their location was. He was saying, where are you, in the sense of, why are you not here? And of course, they were not there because of their sin. They were hiding. But I just point that out to say that they actually physically walked with God. And in many ways, when I'm asking you and challenging you to walk daily, I'm kind of asking you to do the same thing. When you're out here in nature, and I'm just going to give you a quick just view of what I'm looking at here. And when you're out here in nature and you get to see all this, and you're in God's creation, there's something about that that's powerful. Getting away from, I'm in the city of Huntsville, Alabama, getting away from the city and going to places like this where you can just be out in God's creation and know that the God of the universe made this. And he made this in part for us to enjoy. And walking is a way to enjoy it. And also it happens to be something that's helpful for our physical health. But there's this passage in Psalm 19. It says, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. If every day you get out in nature, in a place where there's some trees, if you're like me, where I'm in Huntsville, Alabama, so there's trees in a lot of places, but I know that there's some areas where you don't really have trees. And so maybe you don't have this, but many places have parks. Go find a park. I was in Charlotte yesterday and found a park there to walk in. And it was not this where I get it all to myself. There were runners and stuff going through there. But having that ability to go and walk in God's creation, there's something powerful about that goes beyond just the physical benefit of that for your health. And so we've got this pond here, and she's got a fishing pole for me, and I'm gonna go do some fishing later on. But just being out in God's creation like this, there's a health benefit that's gonna come from that. Not just physically, but spiritually, to acknowledge the God that made all of this and to be able to be out in his creation and enjoy it. So when we think about walking and doing that every day, if you spend a little time, and you can make it longer and longer as you go on, but if you spend a little time, start with 10 minutes, find a park somewhere where you can walk out and look at God's creation. Turn your phone off, no podcast, no music, just get out here in it. Maybe you talk to yourself like me. I talk to myself not just on this camera, but I can think through ideas and talk through ideas when I'm out like this. You'll get to a place where you want the walking, not just for the physical benefit. You want it for the mental clarity that you get. You want it for all of these other things. And these are all things that drinking more water or doing high intensity interval training or lifting weights, while all of those might be things you might want to do, doing this every day has so many secondary benefits. And I think there's the spiritual benefit of being in God's creation as well, that you start doing this every day, your life will change. You will be healthier, not just physically, but spiritually and mentally as well. That's it for today's video. Again, if you're interested in things pertaining to biblical health, like this video, subscribe to the channel,